Good morning, New Life. My name is Evan, and it's my honor this morning to continue the series on Jonah. Today we're going to be talking about Jonah chapter 4, verses 6 through 8. But really quickly, I just want to talk about where we've recently been in Jonah's life. Jonah actually just recently went to the city of Nineveh after running away from God and the whole whale debacle. He finally goes to the city of Nineveh and preaches, as God asked him to do, about God's disaster and his wrath that he was going to bring. But maybe to our surprise, the city of Nineveh repented, and God relented of the disaster or the wrath that he was going to bring on the city of Nineveh. Now, this greatly angered Jonah, and this is really important to remember. The word there, it says exceedingly angered Jonah. It seems as though Jonah didn't want God to have mercy on the city of Nineveh. And Jonah complains to God, saying that this is why he didn't originally go to Nineveh, because he knew God was merciful. And he asked God if he would just be able to die. And God responds to Jonah and basically says, "Is it good for you to be this angry?" And so Jonah just leaves the city, and he goes out and he sets up and he turns around and watches the city as if he's still hoping that God will destroy the city. And that's where verse 6 picks up. And so I'm going to read that really quickly. It says, "Now the Lord God appointed a plant and made it to come up over Jonah, that it might be a shade over his head, to save him from his discomfort. So Jonah was exceedingly glad because of the plant. But when dawn came up the next day, God appointed a worm to attack the plant so that it withered. When the sun rose, God appointed a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on the head of Jonah so that he was faint. And he asked that he might die and said, 'It is better for me to die than to live.'" Now, it's pretty clear that God is setting Jonah up for a lesson in these verses by just kind of an object lesson. But we're going to talk about that lesson in the upcoming days, so I'm going to kind of stay away from that specific lesson and focus in on a couple other things that we can learn from Jonah. First, I want to point out that I believe the writers of Jonah are trying to contrast how Jonah was exceedingly angry that God relented or had mercy on the Ninevites. And then in verse 6 here, it says that it's the exact same Hebrew word that says that Jonah was exceedingly glad when God showed him mercy and provided for him a plant to bring him shade in the sweltering heat. I think that's important. And I think that's going to play into the lesson a little bit that God is trying to teach Jonah. However, something else that I think is important or that is interesting about Jonah in this story and that we can learn from is that Jonah seems to be extremely emotionally fickle. He's all over the place. He's asking God to kill him when he's angry because of the Ninevites getting mercy, and then he's extremely happy, and the next thing you know, his circumstances change again, and he's unhappy again, even to the point of wanting to die. Now, maybe not to that extreme, but I totally understand this. I think you will as well. It's easy when our circumstances change to let our emotions go with those circumstances. I have two little girls, a 6-month-old, or she's almost 7 now, and almost 7 months, and then a girl that's 3.5. And believe me, I understand that some days it feels like everything's going really, really well, and you're on top of the world, and then some days the emotions are running high, and you're wondering if, God, can I do this? Same thing with work. You can be overwhelmed, and I understand it. I think we all can. But I think that what we can learn from Jonah about this is that Jonah is seeing all of these circumstances change from his self-centered, hyper-focused on himself perspective, rather from God's perspective. More than that, rather from God's heart and desire for the whole world versus him. And so have you ever known anybody, this is what I thought of in my head, have you ever known anyone that you would just say was incredibly strong in the Lord? They were confident no matter what the circumstances were. It seems like they have peace about them no matter what comes. You know, I think about Paul when he's in prison writing to the Philippians, and he basically says that he's found an ability to be content no matter what his circumstances. That's the kind of person I'm talking about. And I think that's obviously in contrast to Jonah here. I believe the reason these people are this way is because they've learned to trust in the Lord more than in their circumstances. And maybe even more than that, they know God well enough to know his heart, and they can see that even when they don't understand what God is trying to accomplish, maybe when things are hard in our lives, we don't see the big picture, but we know that there is a big picture. We know and trust the heart of the Lord, that he is for us and he is also for other people. And so I think this is what we can learn from Jonah in this story. So the main point here is, can we take a step back from our own circumstances and see things from God's perspective, or at least when we don't see them, we don't understand, that we can trust in the Lord because he is steadfast and good. So I want to end this by reading a couple verses from Proverbs about trusting the Lord. It's in Proverbs 3 verses 5 through 8. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. Be not wise in your own eyes." That makes me think of Jonah. "Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones." Guys, I hope you're encouraged this morning. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.